Warning. The following podcast contains politics, leftist politics, the whole truth, justice, American way thing. We live in a time where one has to post this. Progress is a dirty word, such as science and reason. My superheroes would weep. This podcast contains naughty language as well. Hey everybody, welcome to DC Domingo 57. My name is Sergio, and today the episode is titled Truth and Justice. We will be talking about 10 topics. We're going to be talking about cinemas reopening sometime soon. Since we mentioned the whole notion of Black Lives Matter on the last one, I thought I'd, kind of touch upon what can the cops do to fix their shit. We're also going to talk about the Ayer Cut. My comic book recommendation, Superman Smashes the Klan. We're going to talk about the newly announced plans for a Zatana movie. We're going to touch a little bit on Stargirl from the DC Universe app. Doom Patrol returning for Season 2. If you haven't seen Season 1, do so. We're going to talk about the Flash casting rumors, Batffleck returning, and of course, Ray Fisher's comments about how the treatment of the reshoots went down. Let's get it started. Alrighty, first we are going to tackle the news. We have, quite a bit of them. We're going to start off with something light. Aquaman is featured in Fortnite. I know they're introducing Captain America soon. Seems kind of cool. Speaking of video games, DC Online for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation have decided to add another episode on their DLC called the Wonderverse, including other versions of Wonder Woman. Nubia comes to mind. You can see the picture here. It shows them various, incarnations of Wonder Woman, and whole, DLC episodes. It's going to take you on an adventure. You can tag with your friends or do it alone. It's pretty awesome. Speaking of diversity, Anthony Mackie from the Marvel Universe, who plays Falcon, wants more diversity in Marvel, reported in Variety. Check it out if you want to. I'm always promoting that. We do have someone that lost their lives, a very old man, a very well-known designer called Milton Glaser. He was, loved in the art design, but for us nerds, he designed the DC Bullet logo, the one that everybody seems to kind of gravitate towards. So, he passed away. He was an old man, and he lived a very, fulfilling life. And, his amazing DC Bullet logo is printed on so many comics that we all love. Speaking of DC, we have some affiliation between DC Comics and Spotify. Looks like they'll be running a nice soup of variety DC podcasts. And if I am venturous enough, I might invest in a new mic and maybe make some silly intro songs so that I don't get copyright strikes. Because, I haven't monetized any YouTube videos so that I don't get any strikes. But it will be challenging to, show you a picture of what I'm talking about. So, it's a plan. We're also going to have a nice plan coming out in August. It's basically DC fandom. It's going to be across video games, animation, comics, TV shows, movies, and I think it's going to run for 24 hours across the world. There are some art contests I might enter. I'll keep you updated. One who's keeping us updated, Sean O'Connell, who was featured in an interview with the Nerd Queens. Go ahead and check it out. He's actually writing a book about the whole Snyder Cut, and he announced that it's coming out next year. Henry Cavill appeared in two amazing YouTube spots, one with Variety and one with Jean-Luc Picard himself, Patrick Stewart. So if you haven't done yourself a favor, grab some tasty beverage and enjoy. It'll definitely be a lot longer than the tiny bit of Justice League Zack Snyder cut teaser that we got. I think it was like a minute and 35 seconds. But yeah. And also late breaking, the Hollywood Critics Association released their mid-year nominees for Best of Everything. And guess what? That little movie that COVID had to take away from the cinema, that little movie that kicked ass on digital sales, that little movie that kicked ass on physical media, yes, Birds of Prey, got 4 nominations. We have nominees for Best Actress, Margot Robbie, Birds of Prey. Nominees for Best Supporting Actor, Ewan McGregor, Birds of Prey. Nominees for Best Picture, there we go, Birds of Prey. And the nominees for Best Supporting Actress, there we go. We have, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Birds of Prey, Huntress herself. Fuck yeah. So there you have it, haters. Like, this movie just keeps on giving, and I fucking love it. On the Snyder Cut movement, we have an impromptu Q&A on Vero by Zack Snyder, confirming that Jonathan Kent is indeed returning for the film, that the original design for Steppenwolf is indeed coming back, that Junkie XL is indeed going to be a thing, that the Green Lantern will be featured, and obviously he shows a lot of support for Jared Leto's Joker, which David Ayer seemed to really like on Twitter. So once again, if you don't like Jared Leto's Joker, fuck off. Thank you, Zack Snyder. There wasn't a lot of toxicity these past weeks, which is pretty awesome. It seemed the Snyder Cut announcement has gotten rid of a lot of haters. There were two things that I want to comment in this segment that we called The Rotting. Dean Cain, if you don't know, he is the star of the Lois and Clark Adventures TV show. And he had some snippy comment like, oh, well, in today's society, you couldn't even say, like, truth, justice, in the American way. I think in Fox News. Well, Tom King was like, the fuck you talking about? Motherfucker, I did this shit this year in DC Comics. And he showed, the comic that he wrote that in. And then Dean Cain responded with like, well, you don't have to say MF, blah, blah, blah. And he was kind of put in his place. Also, Tom Taylor came into the grudge match, and he had this really cool segment of Christopher Reeves, and you can check it out for yourself if you want to. The other toxic news that we have to talk about is not that much toxic. There's only like a couple people in that show that you won't hear it mentioned because they were the toxic people, but like the DC Daily got canceled, and it sucks though because like it could have been a great show. You could have had like people who were passionate about DC, but instead you had like YouTubers and online personalities who were brought in and who had previously said some really fucked up and nasty shit about DC and Zack Snyder and their fans, and just basically regurgitated the same bullshit that you heard the Marvel people say, the fans of Marvel. It's kind of like getting Pepsi fans to come into your Coca-Cola advertising. It just seems kind of fake. Now, Sam Levine, I never really had a problem with him. He seemed honest. He seemed cool. John Barrowman is an amazing LGBT actor who played Malcolm Merlin in the CW Arrow. Fucking great. He was one of my favorite hosts. Harley Quinn Smith, the Kevin Smith's daughter, she's new to the online, commentary community, so she didn't put like those haters on their place. She kind of tiptoed around because she was a guest speaker. I thought she was going to be on every show, but no. So she never really had like a lot of time to put haters in their place. Tiffany Smith has always been really amazing, so I am gonna miss her. She fucking defends DC every time. She was really genuine at the Wonder Woman premiere, and even when she was like confronted in like a Collider video, she was like, "What the fuck," you know? So she seems genuine. Now, Whitney Moore, she also seems. She and Tiffany Smith came in doing like DC videos, and if you remember Whitney Moore, she is one of Max Landis's survivors from his fucked up predatory ways. So she also seemed really amazing, and I kind of like wish that they made her the main protagonist of the show, because if you're gonna get revenge at your fucking hater Max Landis, who hates DC and just wants praise for his fucking sex cult, and he's a fucking sexual abuser. Whitney Moore is the person to put that fucker in his place, right? Also Dan Didio, he was a guest host, and Sam Humphries, which he also seemed pretty fucking down to earth. So the people that I left out, I think there's only 3. One of them was like a famous YouTuber who does like Apple reviews. He was hardly in the show. Another lady, she seems kind of nerdy and cool, but she also is like a DC Universe hater. She praises Marvel every time she gets, and she doesn't defend DC. The other lady, Wolf, she also says some pretty horrible things about Snyder and DC, and of course the unmentionable one, Hector Navarro, who somehow called us toxic, for liking Zack Snyder films. And, someone like HBO and HBO Max and AT&T probably didn't take that fucking kindly, because we're giving this giant corporation a shitload of money and free publicity. This Zack Snyder Justice League is like the hottest film next year that's not in cinema. And it's kind of proving the point of like the big film to make streaming, a thing of the future. So, hey, that's what you get for being toxic, dude. You canceled the show and you cost all these wonderful people a platform. So hopefully if DC Daily comes back, they'll get better people and leave out Hector Navarro. All right, so I don't know how safe you feel going to the cinema, but it was starting to look really good for the whole world, except for the US. I think we fucked up, and we're not going to be able to go to the cinemas this year. I know that there was an amazing essay by Christopher Nolan about saving cinema. I was going to put it on my episodes 4 months ago, but the pandemic just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and it just seemed less relevant. His film Tenet has been delayed twice. Same thing with Wonder Woman. So it's should we risk our lives to go and see movies? I don't know. What you're seeing right now, it's a clip of Mexican cinemas, Cinépolis. And they're taking a shitload of precautions. And I know that it's kind of unknown to have better quality cinema in third world countries in the US, but just look at it. They have leather seats, recliners, you can order pizza with your phone and shit. It looks very fucking VIP. Yeah, it's annoying because there's many aromas of food. I myself have been guilty of sneaking in some burgers. Never something sweet and sour punchy, but barbecue burgers or something. I don't know. We've snuck in even beer, I think, to one of the Transformers movies. Fuck. But anyways, yeah, so I don't know if we're going to be going to the cinema anytime soon here in the States. Even AMC was tiptoeing about going bankrupt, so I don't know. It's kind of disheartening when some people make fun of Mexico, but they have better cinemas and they are way cheaper. You can get a family meal for less than $20. I know, and I think Thursdays is 4 for 1 or some shit like that. It's amazing. But anyways, yeah, cinemas. We shouldn't let them die. So that's why I want to try and experience new movies. Hopefully with HBO Max, there are some really good Japanese movies from the 1950s, in black and white, and some Italian films. So I'm going to try and recommend more of that for you guys. Alrighty, so yeah, the cops, man, there's a lot of talk about, police reform and what the fuck does that have to do with comics, right? And I think most people tend to forget, how gritty Batman's Year One was, in which Commissioner Jim Gordon was not commissioner yet. He was trying to work up in the rank, and he dealt with so much fucking corruption. If you remember the comic book or the animation, Jim Gordon got his ass beat by corrupt cops. And if you've been a Batman fan like me, you've known that the problem in Gotham is, enhanced by really, really shitty cops. And we haven't really had, cop reform for a while. If you remember, that's why, kids all over the world love Dick Tracy back in the comics. And Dick Tracy's old. Goes back to, the early 1900s in periodicals. And he was, a rougher version of, Dirty Harry. But he was, one of those icons that the kids would love, because in a world that is really fucked up and corrupt, a good cop or a good detective is always welcome and appreciated. Even kids know that. I mean, fuck, DC Comics stands for Detective Comics, right? So of course, some people are gonna say, are you trying to say that policing is good and cops are good? It's well, if they work, you kind of have to be the Watchmen. Who watches the Watchmen? I mean, that's another great way to look at it. If you don't police the police, they're gonna fucking do whatever the fuck they want. And I keep thinking of good versions of cops that we grew up with. I mean, for instance, for us in the 80s, Robocop was the shit, And you can't tell me that the police department in the movie wasn't corrupted. I mean, Officer Duffy in the second film was just a corrupt cop. He was fucked up. And, even the demise of Robocop was because of how corporate OCP just took over the police departments to try to, make more money with gentrification and building a new fucking Delta City. So we grew up with, the problems that we saw in cops, but we never, lost hope. We never went the cops can do whatever the fuck they want and beat us up. It's no, it's that always came with our cops heroes always taught us how hard the world was of A, being a cop, and B, policing the cops. If you remember, the head of the department in Robocop was an African-American cop, also the Crow, his cop was also from Detroit, and he was an African-American cop. We grew up with these movies like The Crow and Robocop, and we fucking idolized it. Not to mention that once we found out that the original Lone Ranger, Reeves, was an African-American, U.S. Marshal, dude, fucking amazing. And I think that was the inspiration for Officer West and the Wild Wild West film and the original TV show. Most recently, Reeves has been revived in the Watchmen TV show by HBO, which, by the way, I'll have a really giant Watchmen review. It's taken a while, but you guys might like it. And finally, this quarantine had a lot more free time for everybody. I spent some good time with my dad watching the Dirty Harry movies. I know, it's kind of a shocking thing to admit, but Clint Eastwood is a Republican, and his brand of Republican seems kind of like maverick in a way. The second Dirty Harry movie, he fights killer cops. It's called Magnum Force. Go ahead and check it out. And then on the third one, there is like a militia group that's blowing shit up or killing people or wants to blow shit up. But the mayor of the San Francisco area and the chief of police just want to put the blame on Black Panthers, or like a Black Panther like organization in the film. And you see, Dirty Harry, played by a Republican, defending them. It's like, whoa, that's not the Republican Party that we see right now. Some people might say, like, okay, what if Dirty Harry is just toxic masculinity? What if Dirty Harry, was a woman? And that subject matter is tackled in the next Dirty Harry, where a series of murders is connected to a woman who's trying to get revenge because the system failed her. She was assaulted, and her sister ended up in, like, the loony bin. So she takes it upon herself to kill all the perpetrators and sexual harassers. That is fucking awesome. And guess what happens in the end? Dirty Harry lets her go. That's pretty empowering and pretty fucking badass. So, Dirty Harry is played by a Republican and also written and directed by a Republican. So, that kind of tells you that, like, there is always a yearning for reforming the cops. And we have a lot of amazing icons that we grew up with who are cops. And we can share their struggles and reforming it. And it can be done. The Ayer Cut. Yep, it exists. Not much news or release date given, except that, like, in order for the Ayer Cut to exist, we kind of have to pressure the studio to release it. That's what David Ayer said. He recently had a brand new trailer for a new movie starting Shia LaBeouf coming to Netflix. The Tax Collector. Definitely check it out. There are no news on that front, but fans are basically starting a week-long petition, which you can see over here. If you want to partake, that's great. And yeah, basically darker, maybe R-rated, longer version where characters shine more. We'll definitely keep you guys updated. There is a character called Zatana, whose father was Zatara. And these are magicians who tag along with Batman. And in the animated show, you can see clearly how Bruce Wayne trained with Zatara to, kind of learn how to get out of chains or, out of constraints. And it played a really key role in Batman. There is now a chance to have Zatana take a central role. And hopefully this is going to be like exploration of the magic of the DC universe, which is pretty fucking big and insane. You have Modru, you have fucking Witch Boy, Etrigan, Constantine, Dr. Fate, Trigon. Trigon has been explored through Raven, but you can still do it. And you have a lot of the gods of mythology from the Greek myths, from Wonder Woman, and of course, you have the very, very powerful beings of Lucifer Morningstar from the Sandman universe. So, anyways, as you can tell, there's a lot of great characters that Zatana could encounter in her own movie. Hopefully they pick a Latina, because it was rumored that one Latina was running for the lead in a Justice League Dark. So good news. Comic book recommendation obviously is Superman Smashes the Klan. As you know, I'm not buying single issues anymore, just getting trade paperbacks. I bought this comic in the iTunes store through the DC app, and the artwork's pretty cool. It is kind of quick and sleek, not very detailed like you're used to like in comic books with a lot of etching and stuff. Very fast read, but it does teach the kids the value of Superman. And this is actually based on a real life book in which people from the FBI had infiltrated the KKK back in the day of radio. So every day, the infiltrators would give out the daily secret password to get into Klan meetings on the Superman radio show, and he used to piss off the Klan so fucking much. It was fucking beautiful. So they took this inspiration and they kind of built a story around it to teach kids how intolerance it's horrible for society. Go ahead and check it out. I do know that comic book stores are struggling. If you happen to have even a bookstore, support them as well. I don't know if Barnes & Noble is going to have like a Comic-Con summer, because there is no Comic-Con this year, but they usually have like buy two and get the third one free or some good deals like that. I'll keep you guys updated if I buy any new graphic novels, but this is my recommendation. Alrighty, as someone that grew up with Smallville every Friday night, after, a long week, we all look forward to Smallville and the one or two big action set pieces that the TV show had. Right now, Stargirl is kind of like the spiritual successor of Smallville, and I think it even has like a producer that directed a bunch of episodes from Smallville. Not the main showrunner, but one of the producers, and directs. I think he even directed the pilot episode, which is pretty cool. I know that right now, from what we've heard, Jeff Johns is kind of like a persona non grata, but there is a lot of talented people who worked on this show, and hopefully we can get some, nice creative people. Alrighty, so Doom Patrol Season 2 has been heavily featured and promoted on HBO Max, which has led to a lot of clickbait people going, hey, why don't you just get rid of the DC Universe app and put the shows there? But the DC Universe app has a lot of great stuff. Not only has a lot of animation, it has free comics that you can read in 4K on your giant TV or on your iPad. It's fucking amazing. So I don't want it to go away anytime soon. And when DC content was going to be leaving HBO Max, the fans were like, no. So I think they actually extended Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and all the cool stuff to stay a little bit longer. And I think the plan is basically to cycle both TV shows and DC comic stuff from HBO Max to DC Universe. So we don't have the Nolan movies in one. They go to the next one. They go to the next one. And it's pretty cool. Right now, a lot of people who have subscribed to the DC Universe app can upgrade to HBO Max for like $4.99, which is pretty awesome. I might do it if my contract with Comcast is almost expired. Fuck it, I'll do that. Pretty good deal. But yeah, Doom Patrol Season 2 is available. My amazing girlfriend and I are catching up on the Season 1. I loved her first comment. It's like, hey, this looks like the X-Men. And I'm like, actually, Doom Patrol is first. And she's like, God damn it. So, yeah. We're enjoying it. And, fuck, I want season, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. I don't know. It's a pretty damn good show. And it is definitely the weirdest heroes around. And we have the Flash rumor mill, man. So we can't wait until August when we have the Flash panel by Andy Muschietti and Mrs. Muschietti, who is his producing partner, similar to Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder. They make a great pair. And even like Christopher Nolan and Emma Nolan. Both are, one's a producer, one's a director. It just works, and it works really, really amazing. And I think Aquaman and Shazam's producer is also, his wife is also like a producer as well. So they're like producing partners. So yeah, pretty cool. But the rumor mill has gone a little bit too crazy. The first one we got was that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is going to appear in the Flash movie. And if you don't know him, he played Thomas Wayne in the Batman vs. Superman intro. His portrait is hanging throughout the the office of Wayne Enterprises, and a lot of people speculated that that was going to be Flashpoint, where, young Bruce Wayne is killed in front of his parents, and it is Thomas Wayne who becomes Batman. Now, that led to the other leak where people are like, oh, there is no Bruce Wayne in the script, therefore this rumor is null and void. And for instance, if there is no Bruce Wayne, that basically means that Thomas Wayne is just playing Batman, that there will be no scenes of Thomas Wayne at all. It will just simply be the Batman. So I think that's my take. I don't think necessarily you're going to get like Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the Dr. Thomas Wayne. You're basically getting Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Batman from Flashpoint. The other interesting news is that Cyborg is also going to be featured in The Flash. And if for the life of me I can't hunt down a Flash, statue of Cyborg, it's going to piss me off because it's the statue that I need to complete my collection. So hopefully when Cyborg appears in The Flash, they'll make a statue and I'll get it. But I'm very excited because, Ray Fisher has been making the news, and my previous amazing cover was all Cyborg comics for this past episode. And I'm putting Ray Fisher again on this cover for this episode because of the news. So he is really important, very up-and-coming character and amazing actor. Speaking of amazing actors, Michael Keaton, Batman 89, he also is rumored to have signed a deal to come back in The Flash in the multiverse. And this goes a long way, where some crazy dude in this podcast, I mentioned that that's what they were trying to build. They were trying to build a multiverse, and that was a crazy fucking weird idea. And as we see in the CW, it happened, where all of the DC canon is now intertwined. So instead of screwing up your legacy and just saying that the X-Men movies from Fox never happened, or that the Bill Bixby Hulk TV show never happened, and only the Disney Marvel movies matter, what DC is doing is complete opposite. They're like, no, we've had a legacy for quite some time. So I would hope that The Flash even travels back to the 1940s, where there was a black and white version of Superman movie serials and Batman TV serials, so that to make every single thing that happened in cinema be one big multiverse. I think that would piss off the haters and put Marvel into place. But yeah, the great actor Michael Keaton returning as Batman, rumored to be in many movies. So if you're smart, you would film him right now. And then you put those scenes in later movies, because you don't want to have an iconic Batman played by an old actor and have some unfortunate thing happen where the actor passes away and all of a sudden, you can't, you can spend as much money with the CGI and replace him, but it's not the same. We saw it happen with, Star Wars, and I'm just not fun. Batffleck Mary returning. Yeah, that is the rumor. As you know, Ben Affleck was being Batman is really stressful. I'm leaving. He had a drinking problem and he left Batman. So that left a lot of people going, okay, well, I guess we'll support Robert Pattinson. And most of us thought that he was playing a younger version of the same Batman. But now it seems that Affleck left because of the bullshit that was going on behind the scenes. And, he wanted to get his life back together. Which, if you've seen the latest pictures of him, he looks very happy. He looks very healthy. And I showed a picture of him protesting, supporting the Black Lives Matter movement with his girlfriend, Ana de Armas. So he's getting his life back together. He seems a little bit more mentally fit and physically fit and overall fucking happy, He even appeared on like his best friend's stoner comedy, Jane Silent Bob Reboot, which was pretty damn awesome. You know, him and Kevin Smith had patched things up. He even appeared on Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes' star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and stuff. So yeah, if Batfleck does indeed return for HBO Max, it seems amazing because Affleck is actually a producer of the Ayer Cut from what we've seen. And if he has more control over his film, great. That basically means that we get Ben Affleck's Batman fighting Jared Leto's Joker, and we might even get Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke, the original Terminator, back in the fold as it was intended. So, fuck. If this rumor is proven true in the fandom in August, whew, we're going to scream across the bat roofs. Alrighty, so the main topic of our conversation is that the last episode of this podcast was Cyborg is the heart of the Justice League film. And it makes sense because he was the one who had a mother box create him, and he had the connection to, Darkseid's minions, and he could see into the mother boxes. And what happened was, with the reshoots, his character was diminished, and you can tell that he's very unhappy filming, very uncomfortable. He went on, Twitter to say that first of all, he retracted the praise that, Zack Snyder chose a good director like Joss Whedon to finish the reshoots. So he said, he retracts that one. The next day, he said that, Joss Whedon's behavior was unprofessional and gross and disgusting. And not much to my surprise, because, I've always been kind of surprised that people like Joss Whedon to begin with. For instance, I had a girlfriend who really liked his musical, Dr. Horrible Sing Along, and I'm like, hey, that, this guy has, although you think he wrote a really cool musical during the writer's strike, he blamed Halle Berry for his shitty dialogue. That seems really uncool. And he also blamed French director Jeannot for the movie Alien Resurrection, one that I haven't even shown my girlfriend because it's so fucking bad. And yes, we've seen Alien 3. That movie was fucking great, if you've seen the assembly cut of, David Fincher. So yeah, I was explaining to, this lady that I was seeing, there's a lot of fucking bullshit that this director has done and has never taken any accountability for. And she said, well, that's kind of what the rules of great men, that they never take full responsibility. If you admit that you're at fault, you're less great. And in the Trump era, we've seen how that shit plays out. It's if you never admit that you fucked up, you're gonna get a narcissistic abuser. And that's what it seems like this Joss Whedon character is like. And my introduction to him was fans online. I never looked at his work and I'm like, that shit looks good. It's more his fans were knocking on your door and being like, do you have a moment to talk about the Church of Joss Whedon? And even The Onion or other websites make fun of that his fans were just kind of crazy, and it was never his fucking fault for anything that happened. So that was a red flag for me. I remember going to see the X-Men in San Francisco with my buddies, and I was like, oh, this is a cool movie, but it seems like somebody left a child with a fucking pencil just write funny one-liners and kind of ruin the whole fucking movie. Well, that was Joss Whedon's writing. He just has sneaky comebacks, and that's what he's known for. And just kind of derivative bullshit. I know that a lot of fans like his Buffy and Angel series, but and even Firefly, but you can't those characters don't hold up that well. Firefly doesn't compare to Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica or even The Expanse right now with Amazon Prime. And his Buffy TV show is like kind of like, well, if you were a feminist, why not hire a woman producer, woman writer, woman, script supervisor? It's almost like what his wife said, that he pretended to be a feminist just to sleep with his cast. Seems pretty fucking evident when you kind of look at the track record. Like he fired an actress because she got pregnant, and he had to like write the pregnancy in the show, and he was more concerned about his show than the well-being of an actress. I think he also tried to sleep with Elisha Doshku from Dollhouse. Yeah, and there's a lot of those instances where you kind of go like, this guy has had a really shady track record. But whatever happens, he's like the anti-George Lucas. George Lucas can make something good, but people will hate him, right? This guy makes something shitty, but people will like him. And if something is shitty from Joss Whedon, it's always somebody else's fault. That's why like the Trump cult never fucking surprised me, because I was already like, aware of the Joss Whedon cult. They just wear different fucking hats. So, for instance, when Ray Fisher came out and said this, it made fucking sense. If you look at the Age of Ultron scene where Bruce Banner lands on the tits of Black Widow, that's just Whedon's humor. In Justice League, for some fucking reason, the Flash lands on top of Wonder Woman. That scene was out of bounds. Even Gal Gadot refused to shoot it, and they got a body double. Like, it's the same fucking joke that doesn't work. And that's how this so-called genius works. The infamous now dialogue that he blamed Halle Berry. What happens to a toad when struck by lightning. The same thing that happens to everything else is the same fucking joke that he used in Firefly. We will call this land land. It's the same fucking joke, but he keeps rehashing his fucking ideas, and people praise him. And it's one of those things where like a bunch of fat white dudes are the gatekeepers of this shit, because they're like, well, he looks like a fat white dude, I can relate to him, I have my own website, I have my own comic book store, we're gonna recommend this fucker. And anybody who didn't agree with Joss Whedon humor or his praise, oh shit, you got the cold shoulder, man. You were not a real nerd if you didn't like Joss Whedon. Somehow that shit is ingrained into people. It's almost like, the Ford company is great American company. If you don't like Ford, you're not American. And then you kind of go, well, didn't Ford have some fascist leanings? And people kind of see you as like, what the fuck? Same thing with Walt Disney. Didn't Walt Disney have some fascist leanings? People look at you weird when you point that shit out. So yeah, I am glad that Ray Fisher spoke out. Kevin Smith confirms it in his podcast that while visiting Industrial Light and Magic here in San Francisco, he heard from artists that work on the CGI of both Star Wars and Justice League that this was confirmed, and Phil Lord, who was originally going to direct Solo, also supports him. So we're getting a lot of information uncovered from this. And, the media is always being like, support the victims of abuse. Because, quite frankly, Ray Fisher was screwed over of his career, of from an amazing film into a side character on the theatrical cut. Not only that, we're also hearing rumors that Joss Whedon was fucking yelling at Gal Gadot, and like, I'm sorry, but that seems like, no. Like, you don't fucking yell at Gal Gadot unless you're gonna say you're amazing or something like that. You don't like get angry because she doesn't want to do the dialogue you written or the scene that you have written, which makes sense that Patty Jenkins is like, she's gonna come back with a vengeance. She's already working with like an Amazon spinoff, and she's taking time to write this pandemic into Wonder Woman 3, which is going to be set in modern times. So, hey, let's keep the pressure on people coming forward, like this lady, who, kind of said, like, that she also supports it, and she is the stunt double of Gal Gadot. So, and, and in the midst of these accusations, we have John Berg, who was supervising the reshoots. This producer kind of downplayed this shit, and I'm sorry, but if Warner Brothers is listening, or anybody up there in management, you kind of have to get this guy a severance package and, get rid of him, because you can't really, like, shut down a person of color coming forth with, like, abuse allegations in these times and still have a job in Hollywood. I'm sorry, but he's got to be fired or put in a warehouse, stamping paper. Anyways, so that's why we chose Cyborg holding the American flag on this 4th of July. And that's why this episode is titled Truth and Justice. Hopefully you like this, and we'll see you soon. DLC at DC.